We're going on a road trip to Chicago on US 20. Come on, let's go. Alright everyone, today we're continuing the US 20 series. Today we're going to be talking about US 20 in the Midwestern states. Those states will include Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. We're going to be going through a very major city here in the United States. We're going to be going through Chicago, so I'm very excited to do that. Because personally I have not been to Chicago in 5 years. So it's going to be very cool as we go through it virtually. So let's get started with US 20 in the Midwestern. But first, you've been watching TheDerpHog, where I make all sorts of highway content based off of random topics. If you've been enjoying my content, be sure to hit that like button, and if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to hit that subscribe button, as it really helps out a ton. Also, I am open to extra requests for future videos. If you want to check out all the future highways, be sure to read in the description below as where I put them, and if you have any extra requests for those, please put them down in the comment section below and I'll make sure to get it out to you. So let's get started with the highway. As you can see here, this is our map from last week. This is the entirety of US Highway 20. But today we're just going to be looking at the states of Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. So let's get started with eastbound US 20 Midwestern. So we begin where we left off last week at the Wyoming and Nebraska line, where Nebraska is welcoming us and it's telling us that it's home of Arbor Day. Like, who celebrates Arbor Day? In our first mileage time in Nebraska, we get Harrison. What happened to Chadron? Wyoming was signing Chadron, so Nebraska, you should keep up with it, not sign Harrison. No one even knows what Harrison, Nebraska is. But here in Harrison, we actually now get Chadron at 51 miles away, so yay. And we also get a mention of Casper from 137 miles away. And on our way to Chadron, we actually meet US 385, and 385 and US 20 have a concurrency as we head through the town. And here's where US 385 splits off from US 20 here in Chadron. In our next mileage time, we get Gordon on the bottom line at 47 miles away. Honestly, that's a good choice because that's the next major town we'll be going through. And plus, if you want to sign Valentine, Valentine's too far away from here. For our next mileage time, we get Valentine on the bottom line at 90 miles away because that's a great choice, and that's where we meet US 83. And here in Valentine, we're meeting US 83, and US 83 and US 20 have a concurrency with each other. And this is where US 83 splits off from US 20, and now US 20 is heading towards O'Neill. But instead of O'Neill on the bottom line, we get Ainsworth on our next mileage time at 40 miles away. I'd rather see O'Neill on there. But our next mileage time, we get O'Neill on the bottom line at 65 miles away, which is a great choice because that's where we meet US 281 and US 275. But on our way to O'Neill, we actually meet US 183. And this is where US 183 splits off from US Highway 20. And now in O'Neill, we're meeting US Highway 281 and 281, and US 20 have a concurrency with each other. And this is where US 281 splits off from US 20, and this is actually the start of US 275. So now from here to where US 275 splits from US 20, they have a concurrency with each other. Also, this town might have really good luck or must be really Irish because of this clover leaf right here in the middle of the intersection. Our next mileage time, we get Sioux City on the bottom line 124 miles away. Wow, Nebraska's really good at signing US Highway 20, so they get a win here in my book. And this is where US 275 splits off from US Highway 20, and US 20 is continuing towards Sioux City. In fact, Sioux City is still on our bottom line at 112 miles away. And just outside of Sioux City, we're meeting US Highway 81. And this here is in Sioux City, where we're going to be joining with Interstate 129, and we're going to be on Interstate 129 and US Highway 75 for a short concurrency. And now we're meeting Interstate 29 as we enter into the state of Iowa, so yay. And this is what North Interstate 29 is signed for in Sioux City, and it's signed for downtown, while we're signed now for Fort Dodge and Lamar's. Lamar's is on US 75, while we're signed for Fort Dodge. In fact, we get Fort Dodge on our next mileage sign at the bottom line at 117 miles away. That must be a pretty long distance. On our way to Fort Dodge, we're meeting US Highway 59 and US 59 and US 20 have a concurrency. And this is where US 59 splits off from US Highway 20 as we're continuing east towards Fort Dodge. Now we're meeting US Highway 71, and we've seen US 71 before. In fact, if you're a fan of the Kansas City Swifties, you would probably watch this video because I did it to celebrate their Super Bowl win. And if you want to check out that video and you're not a Kansas City fan, you can still check it out right up here. And this is where US 71 splits off from US 20 and it's signed south for Sac City and Carroll. I believe Carroll is on there because that's where we meet US 30. And we finally get to Fort Dodge where we meet US Highway 169, which is signed for Fort Dodge. And on US 169 itself, we're now signed east for Waterloo, which is still another 100 miles away from here. And here are meeting US Highway 69 at exit 149. And now we're meeting Interstate 35, which is signed south for Des Moines, which is a great choice. And north for Mason City. Huh? I've never even heard of Mason City, Iowa before I did research on this video. Apparently that's where Interstate 35 meets US 18. But for some reason it's just a one-off here, and at every other interchange north of here, 35 is signed for Minneapolis. So why not sign it here too, Iowa? I don't know. Now we're meeting US Highway 65. And now we're meeting US Highway 63 on the outskirts of Waterloo. And here in Waterloo, we're actually meeting US Highway 218, and we're now going to have a small concurrency with Interstate 380. And guess what Interstate 380 is? Hey, I know this highway. Interstate 380 here in Iowa is one of the three 380 spurs along Interstate 80 in its entire route, the other two being in California and Pennsylvania. Interstate 380 here in Iowa connects Interstate 80 from Iowa City all the way up to the city of Waterloo, where it dead ends into US 218. Some major intersections on Interstate 380 include US 20, US 30, US 151, US 218, and Interstate 80 itself. Also, Extreme Geography made a Interstate 380 video, so if you'd like to check that out and more on Interstate 380, I recommend checking it out up here. That's a little about 380, and let's get back onto US 20. Here we're splitting off from Interstate 380 as it's signed south for Cedar Rapids, and we're now signed east for Dubuque, which is a great choice. And what comes around goes around. I remember doing the US 52 series like 7 months ago, and we're finally doing US Highway 20 now. So if you want to check out the US 52 series, I recommend checking it out up here in the top right corner. And here passed by the Iowa Farm Toy Museum once again. And this is where US 52 splits off from US 20 and it's signed south for Bellevue and Asbury. And now we're in Dubuque and US 20 just gets signed east for Illinois. Why not Rockford instead of just Illinois? After crossing over the Mississippi River, we're now entering into the state of Illinois. What happened to the O? And here, still in East Dubuque, we're actually now signed east for Rockford, which is the great choice. But IDOT likes the IDOT, and now we're signed for Galena. Why? What happened to Rockport? And we also passed by Thunder Bay Falls, which apparently is private. Then why is it signed on Google Maps? Are you wanting everyone to come over here? Then don't sign if you wanted it to be private. And here in Rockford, we're now going to be signed east for Chicago, which is a great choice because we're going to be meeting Interstate 39 and Interstate 90. And here's the meeting with Interstate 39, and we're going to be joining with Interstate 39 North and US 51 North. And we also get a 2 I-90 for Wisconsin and Chicago. Here is where US Highway 20 splits off from Interstate 39. Here in Belvidere Day, we have a directional sign, and we're signed east for Marengo. Huh? I've never heard of Marengo, Illinois. So apparently, Illinois does not want you to take US 20 to Chicago because US 20 is the free route, and they want you to stay on the toll road. And apparently so, because apparently there's no mention of Chicago on this sign here. Instead, we get Hampshire and Huntley for the two state highways that we're gonna meet. No, that should be Elgin and Chicago, Illinois, not Hampshire and Huntley. What are you doing here? This is the worst sign ever. And to confuse it even more, we get Illinois and Illinois. What? We're in Illinois. I know this is supposed to be for the state routes, but this can be confusing to those who want to take this exit. What are you doing here, Illinois? But our next mileage time, we get Chicago on the bottom line at 48 miles away, which is a great choice, and Elgin here too. Where were they on the sign we saw just a moment ago? Now we're entering into the Chicagoland area where we meet Illinois Highway 59. It's kind of like the barrier between Chicago and not Chicago, at least in my opinion. And now we're meeting Illinois 390 or future Interstate 390. And now we're meeting Interstate 290 and Interstate 355, which is signed for Chicago and Rockford, and for Joliet, which are great choices for a 3-digit interstate. And now we're meeting Interstate 290 and 290 and US 20 have a short concurrency with each other, splitting off from the Eisenhower Expressway as US 20 now becomes North Avenue and Lake Street. And now we're meeting the US 12 and US 45, where we form the famous 12-20-45 concurrency in Chicago. And now we're meeting the Eisenhower once again, where it's just get east and west and no control cities. Now we're meeting US Highway 34, which actually takes you over to the Brookfield and Brookfield Zoo, which I've actually been to. Now we're meeting Old US Highway 66. And now we're meeting Interstate 55 in this snow scenery here, and Interstate 55 is signed south for St. Louis. And I checked ahead, and Interstate 55 is signed north for Chicago, which again is a good choice. And now we're meeting the Tri-State Tollway once again, along with Archer Avenue, and I've actually been on Archer Avenue because Illinois 171 actually takes you all the way into the town of Lamont, Illinois. So yay! We're now on LaGrange Road. Now here's where US 12 and 20 splits off from US 45 as we head now east towards US 41. Here I'm meeting the Tri-State Tollway once again, and it's signed south for Indiana. And now we're joining Lakeshore Drive, and US 41, 12, and 20 have a concurrency as we head out of the city. Here are entering into Indiana, and we now meet Interstate 80, 90, and 94. And this is where US 41 splits off from US 12 and 20. Here's where US 12 splits off from US 20 for the first time, and certainly not for the last. Why, hello there, US 12. Where did you come from? And now we're meeting Interstate 65, which is signed south for Indianapolis. And I've actually been on this part of Interstate 65. I've been on Interstate 65 basically from here all the way down to exit 69 in Alabama. Yes, I've been on the majority of Interstate 65. And this is where US 12 truly leaves US 20 as US 12 heads east towards Detroit. We leave US 12, we have a directional sign. We're signing east for Portage. No, that should be South Bend or Michigan City, not Portage. We're already in Portage basically here. Now we're meeting Interstate 94, which gets east for Detroit and west for Chicago. But sadly, on Interstate 94 itself, we're just signing east for Porter. Again, what about Michigan City or South Bend? We're already in Porter and Burns Harbor, so I've never heard of these places. Now we're meeting US Highway 421, and this is actually the northern terminus of the highway. And we're actually going to be coming back to this highway soon in a couple of weeks. And now we're meeting US Highway 35, which is signed south for LaPorte, and we're finally signed southeast for South Bend. Here in South Bend, we're going to be joining with US Highway 31, and US 20 and 31 is signed east for Plymouth. And this is where US 20 splits off from US Highway 31, and it's signed south for Plymouth and Indianapolis, while we're signed east for Elkhart, which is a good choice because that's where we meet the northern terminus of US 33. In fact, here is the northern terminus of US 33, and it's signed for Elkhart and Goshen. And on US 33 itself, US 20 is now signed east for Angola, which is a great choice because that's where we meet Interstate 69. I know Angola is not a big city, but it's still where we meet Interstate 69. Now we're meeting Interstate 69 here in Angola, and Interstate 69 is signed for Fort Wayne and Lansing, which are great choices. As we're leaving Angola, we have another mileage sign, and we have Toledo on the bottom line at 68 miles away, which is a great choice by Indiana. But sadly, they're downgrading here and signing Columbia over Toledo here. And guess what Columbia, Ohio is? An unincorporated community. It's not even showing up on the map. So why is Indiana signing it here over Toledo? I don't understand their choices. And Indiana is actually getting some bad rap. We're now entering into the state of Ohio, where we end here at the Midwestern series. So we're going to be turning around and doing westbound US 20 Midwestern. So we begin at the Ohio and Indiana state line, where we just get this weird sign here. But shortly entering into the state, we have the Welcome to Indiana sign right over here. And Interstate 80 and 90 here, the Indiana toll road. And our first mileage in Indiana, we get LaGrange on the bottom line at 26 miles away. Okay, that's the next major town we're passing through. Even though Angola is where we meet Interstate 69. Now we're meeting Interstate 69 once again, and just like last time, it's the same control cities. And this is actually here in Elkhart, where we're meeting US 33 once again. And I skipped all the way over to US Highway 35, and we're now signed west for Michigan City, which is a great choice. And here's where we meet US 421, and we're now signed for Gary, which is a great choice. And here's the Indiana toll road once again, as US 12 now has joined with us. And now we're meeting US Highway 41, and 41, 12, and 20 are heading northwest towards Chicago. We're roughly now entering into the state of Illinois around this area. And here's where US 41 splits off from US 12 and 20 to become Lakeshore Drive. Now we're joining with US 45 to form the famous 12, 20, and 45 concurrency, and LaGrange Road. And now we're meeting Archer Avenue once again, along with the Tri-State Tollway. And now we're meeting Interstate 55, which is signed for Chicago and St. Louis. And sadly, we just get LaGrange Road because that's what this tri-concurrency is known for here in Chicago. Now we're meeting US Highway 34 once again, and like I said earlier, it takes you over to Brookfield Zoo. And this is where US 20 splits off from US 12 and 45. Here in the outskirts of Chicago, we're now signed for Rockford and Chicago, so yay. None of this state highway business foolery. Now we're meeting the Illinois toll road, which is Interstate 90, which is signed for Chicago and Rockford. Here outside of Belvidere, we're now joining with Interstate 39 and US Highway 51, where we're signed for Freeport. No, that should be East Dubuque. Now we're splitting off from Interstate 39, we're signed for Freeport. No, that should be Dubuque, not Freeport. Dubuque's the next major city we're going to be passing through. In fact, we get Dubuque on the bottom line at 85 miles away, and this is another instance where IDOT likes to IDOT. Now in Dubuque, we're actually meeting US 61 and 151. And here's where US 52 joins up with US 20. And this is where US 52 splits off from US 20 as it heads towards Dyersville and Cascade. Now we're meeting Interstate 380 once again, and this time we get no control city for 380 in US 20. Now we're meeting US Highway 218, and US 20 signed west for Cedar Falls. No, there should be Fort Dodge, not Cedar Falls. They're favoring Iowa 27 here. But our next major intersection, we get Fort Dodge as our correct control city, so that's good. Now we're meeting Interstate 35 once again, which is for Des Moines and Mason City. Again, that should be Minneapolis or St. Paul. Here we're meeting US Highway 169 once again, and we're now signed west for Sioux City. And here in Sioux City, we're going to be joining with US Highway 75 and Interstate 129. And here's where we meet Interstate 29, which is signed north for Sioux City and south for Council Bluffs. No, that should be Omaha, not Council Bluffs. Now we're entering into the state of Nebraska. Yay. And here is where US 75 splits off from US 20, and we just get a US 20 pull-through sign, no control city. In fact, we don't get any control city for either North 77 or South 77. And here's an end Interstate 129 shield. And our next junction, we get O'Neill as our next control city at 110 miles away, which is a great choice. Now we're reuniting with US Highway 275 and US 275 and US 20 head west towards O'Neill together. And this is here in O'Neill where we get a nice N275 shield, and US 20 and 281 have a concurrency with each other. Here's where US 281 splits off from US 20 as US 20 is now heading west towards Valentine. But we don't get Valentine or next Valentine, we get Atkinson at 18 miles away. What are you doing here, Nebraska? Our next mileage time, we get Bassett at 30 miles away. So are they favoring the Nebraska route here too? I thought you were good at this, Nebraska. What happened? Now we're meeting US Highway 183 and US 183 and US 20 have a concurrency with each other. And our next mileage time, we get Ainsworth at the bottom line at 17 miles away. Why? And this is where US 20 splits off from US Highway 20. And now we get a sign for Valentine, which is coming up soon. I thought we were in Ainsworth already, but apparently not. We're still 5 miles away from the town. And they're just only giving us Ainsworth and no other town here for Nebraska. Why? Give us another town. Put Valentine on that sign, not Ainsworth. But once we exit out of Ainsworth, we finally get signed west for Valentine, or what's on that other mileage sign. Here in Valentine, we're meeting US 83 and US 83 and US 20 have a concurrency as we head to the town together. And here's where US 83 splits off from US 20. And US 20 is going to be signed west for Gordon, which is a good choice. But instead of just telling us about Gordon, we actually get Gordon and Chadron mentioned here. Chadron is still another 137 miles away, so that's awesome. Apparently Nebraska likes to flip-flop between 1 line and 3 line and 2 line mileage signs. Also, since we're in Valentine, all the street signs here have hearts on them, so that's pretty cool. Here in Chadron, we're meeting US Highway 385, and US 385 and US 20 have a concurrency with each other. And this is where US 385 splits off from US 20, as US 20 is now heading west towards Casper. After leaving US 385, we get another mileage sign and some beautiful scenery here. We get Harrison on the bottom line at 26 miles away. I think this is Nebraska trying to be provincial here. The next major city we're going to be passing through is Casper, so why not sign Casper? And after going through Harrison, we finally get a sign for Casper, which is 137 miles away. So yay! And after seeing that mileage sign, we're back at the Nebraska and Wyoming border. And sadly, that is all covered in the US 20 Western video, which you can see right up here. So that ends the US 20 Midwestern series, and we move on to, the places I'll go on US 20 Midwestern. So if I was ever on US 20 in the Midwestern states, these would all be the places I'd visit. First, I'd visit the town of Valentine, Nebraska, and then Sioux City in Nebraska/Iowa, and then the city of Fort Dodge, and then the town of Dyersville, along with the Field of Dreams movie site. And after that, I'd love to visit the city of Dubuque and Rockford, and then visit the town of Lamont. And then after that, I'd like to revisit the Brookfield Zoo, and along with my family in Chicago. And after going there, I want to visit the city of South Bend and the Notre Dame campus. And then finally, I'd like to visit Fort Wayne, which is not on US 20 but on Interstate 69. And that ends US 20 Midwestern. Thank you all so much for watching this video on US 20 and the Midwestern states. I hope you learned a little bit more about US Highway 20. And I hope you're excited for next week for US 20 in the Eastern states. I'll give you a hint, Pennsylvania's actually pretty good. And so these are my next few plans for the rest of the US 20 series, along with what I'm going to be doing after the US 20 series. So I'll be releasing US 20 Eastern on May 23rd, and after that I'm going to be releasing the US 20 Eastbound Supercut that next Tuesday, and then the US 20 Westbound Supercut will be coming out June 4th, and then after that I'm going to be doing US Highway 421. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next week as we head east.